Well, I tried to be live today at 1, but I just couldn't get back from class fast enough. So, as everybody knows, I teach at Emory Law School on Wednesdays from 10:30 to 12:30. And sometimes it's just Atlanta traffic. I just don't make it back in time. Emory's about a half hour from here. So today, what I really want to talk about today is something that's really been bothering me. It's been bothering me for many, many years. And it is something that is causing or really stopping people from fixing their immigration status. And it is something that Congress created knowing what it was, knowing the impact it would have, maybe not quite understanding completely, but today, the impact of the permanent bar on literally millions of people is stopping millions of people from legally fixing their immigration status. So we need to take a trip back in time to 1996. 1996 is 2 years after Pete Wilson won re-election in California as the last real Republican governor of California, running on an anti-immigration ticket and Proposition 13. This was to deprive all benefits to undocumented immigrants. You know what the word is they use for it. And Newt Gingrich then took that playbook from Pete Wilson from California. The only other governor Republican since I think is Arnold. I'm pretty sure Arnold's Republican in name only, clearly a rhino, per my GOP friends. And so what Newt did as part of his contract on America, they passed a law called IRA. It's the Illegal Immigration Reform Act and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996. IRA. It was signed by President, yes, you guessed it, Bill Clinton. The mood in Congress was basically to shut down all immigration. They were going to shut down legal immigration, and they were going to pass this law to quote, shut down illegal immigration. This was because 6 years earlier or 10 years earlier, they'd had an amnesty, and shockingly, amnesty didn't solve the undocumented immigration problem because they gave 2.5 million green cards to Mexican men, and then said, go ahead and sponsor your families, which they did, not realizing there'd be a 30-year-long line, so the families came in. And then the men they gave green cards to who were doing crappy work, crappy jobs, horrible jobs, said, oh, I have a green card, I'm going to work somewhere else. So who's going to do that work? It was completely foreseeable, completely predictable, and you guess it. Within 6 years, there was 6 million undocumented immigrants in America, and it was just the beginning. Millions more came in over the next several years because American economy was booming under Clinton. The budget was balanced. We didn't have enough bodies to do work Americans won't do. It's been around a long time. I don't know, 250 years. Work Americans won't do. Immigrants getting the job done. So Congress passes IRA, and IRA it rewrote all of immigration law in the context of enforcement, rearranged sections, and did things that were really terrible. But there are three things in particular that it did. And number three being the permanent bar, and I need to get up to that. So you can talk about how terrible this is today. So it's 1996. There's about 5-6 million undocumented immigrants in America. Almost all had come post 1990. And Congress did this. Congress said, look, prior to this time, if you had come into the country illegally without a visa, you could still get a green card. You could still adjust status here as long as you're married to a citizen or had an employer sponsor you. Congress said, nope, you have to have a lawful entry to the United States in order to adjust status in the United States. So you have to have a lawful entry. That means all those people, they came in before then or after then, they came in illegally, cannot get a green card in the United States. Now, of course, there are exceptions to every rule. There was 245I in 98 and 01. There are exceptions for U visas and T visas and battered spouses. But they're talking about 5%. 95% of the people cannot get a green card in the United States if they did it illegally. Okay, that's fair. It's fair. You got to go back home. It's fair. All right. Just kind of a little punishment. The second thing IRA did that was bad said, and that wasn't necessarily bad. Now they said this, look, if you came into the country illegally, or you were here illegally on September 30th, 1996, and you stay for longer than 6 months, and then you leave, then you can't come back for 3 years. Seems okay, harsh, but not terrible. But if you came into the U.S. illegally or overstayed your visa by a year after September 30, 1996, and then you leave, even if you're leaving to get a green card, even if you're leaving because you married a citizen, even if you're leaving because your kid can sponsor you, even if you're leaving because your employer can sponsor you, when you leave, if you have 1 year of unlawful presence, you can't come back for 10 years. 10 years, 10-year bar. They call these the 3 and 10-year bars. They found in Immigration Nationality Act, Section 212A, 9B. These are bad. But Congress said, you know what? You're gonna get forgiveness. You can be forgiven for the 3 and 10-year bar if you have a spouse or a parent who's a citizen or resident, and they are going to suffer extreme hardship if you can't come back. That is now morphed into the provisional waiver that President Obama modified in 2013. And many U.S. citizens, many people married to U.S. citizens or have parents who are citizens or residents, we can do the waiver and they can go and they come back. And that's been great. And there have been hundreds of thousands of people that have benefited from the provisional waiver. One of the few things Trump didn't get rid of that shocked me. I thought he was going to get rid of it. But that's so, provisional waivers, the 10-year bar is bad, but at least it's forgivable, right? There's circumstances you can forgive it. The worst thing Congress did, though, was the permanent bar. And it's terrible in many, many ways. They said this: if you are in the United States, now the 3 and 10-year bars, by the way, only apply to people over the age of 18. So if you were 16 and came illegally and left at 17, you don't have a bar. But if you came at 18 and left at 19, then you have a bar. Okay, so keep that in mind. The permanent bar does not have an age base. So if you came into the country as a newborn and your parents brought you on their shoulders across the river, and then 5 years later, they wanted you to go back to meet grandma because grandma was dying. So you came in 95. And in 2000, grandma was dying. They took you across the border and you went and grandma and you came back. Both your parent and you have the permanent bar. The permanent bar says if somebody comes into the country illegally or overstays their visa for a year, more than 12 months or more, and you leave for whatever reason, doesn't matter why you're leaving, going to see because grandma's dying or my dad died or I need to have cancer surgery, whatever it is. If you leave, you activate the 10-year bar. All right, you got the 10-year bar. Okay. If you have over 18. But then it says this: if you then come back illegally within 10 years, ignoring the base age limit, so they bring you back, you are barred for life. The rest of your life, you are barred from immigrating to America. Forever. Forever. You can be forgiven for that. There's a waiver. If Congress built in a waiver, you have to go home for 10 years. You go home for 10 years, then you can ask to be forgiven. Now, we've had a lot of success for people that did go home. But, we're talking about a little tiny itty-bitty portion of people. And we're also talking about, this is 27 years ago. Those 6 million people, many of them are still here and more. Today they came out and said there's the same number of people here illegally today as there was in 2008. So much for the waves of people coming in illegally. So you have a permanent bar. Why is that important? Well, people shouldn't be coming back. Look, in the late 90s, early 2000s, the border was open. Let's not kid her. You go, come. But they began catching people. So a lot of people were caught and then voluntary return, and came back. And they didn't get caught the second time because you could do that. You can't really do that today. It's very, very hard to come illegally. It is. You get through without getting caught, you are in the small minority. Back in the day, you were in the majority. Most people didn't get caught. But now you mostly get caught. BP, the Border Patrol is much better, much better finding people, much better catching people, much better at this. But you have a permanent bar. So your child turns 21, permanent bar. One, you can't adjust. Two, you can't get a waiver because your child doesn't qualify for a waiver. And three, you have a permanent bar. You left and came back. Here is where it's particularly damaging. It's for DACA kids who came as children or baby, and mom and dad took them back, and they came back again. And they disclosed that on their application for DACA. Permanent bar. They've traveled on advanced parole. They've come back in, married to a citizen, permanent bar. There is the waiver for the permanent bar. You live outside the country for 10 years. That's the waiver. One. Two, if you are the beneficiary of a U victim of crime visa, that waives the permanent bar. Three, you are the beneficiary of a T, human trafficking or labor trafficking visa, that waives the permanent bar. Or four, an immigration judge grants you cancellation of removal, which happens to 4,000 people a year, that waives the permanent bar. That's it. I can't tell you how many times a week a family comes in my office with their wonderful 21-year-old child and says, I'd like my child to sponsor for me. I say, great. Your child can absolutely sponsor for you. Absolutely, the child's going to do that. It's going to be approved. That's not your problem. Your problem is way bigger than that. Let me ask you a question. When did you come into the country? The answer is the first time? Actually, all the times. And if you came in and then left after September 30, 1997, September 1997, and then you came back within 10 years, you have a permanent bar. Unless you're the victim of a crime, victim of a trafficking visa, or you're in removal and win cancellation, you're done. What if my child joins the military? Doesn't matter. What if my child's sick? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So how many people are there? Estimates are at least 3 million people. At least 3 million people in the United States today who've been here, most of them 20 years or longer, are victims of the permanent bar. Think about that. More than 25% of the people that are undocumented could actually fix their immigration status if the permanent bar was deleted. INA section 212A9C is the most pernicious, most horrible, most directly impactful, negative piece of garbage law on the books today. Literally, Congress could literally pass a 2-line bill that literally INA 212A9C is repealed. That fixes it. That's going to fix the immigration situation of millions of people. Democrats tried to do this. They passed a bill, HB 6, which passed the House, which got rid of the permanent bar. Couldn't find 10 Republicans to vote for it in the Senate to fix immigration. So why, if you could literally fix the status of parents of U.S. citizens, children of U.S. citizens, DACA, if you could fix that by getting rid of a terrible law that really serves no purpose, it did not dissuade a single person from coming ever. It is literally a punitive law. It is only punishment, and it is a lifetime. I mean, how is that not cruel and unusual? I don't know. Maybe another basis for challenge. How? How is this law still in existence? This is my biggest rant on immigration law. It is awful. It is terrible. It is negative. It's the thing that needs to get deleted first before anything else. You get rid of that, you fix millions of people's lives, along with increasing immigrant visa numbers. That's another way to do it. All right, let's see what we got here. We got some questions here today. I went on my rant. That's my 10-minute rant. That was a long rant. 15-minute rant on one thing. Zuri, good to see you. Elizabeth, hello. Ludi, already missed your valuable time. Oh, you're welcome. Hopefully you didn't miss too much. There's plenty after where that came from. My friend Vanessa, good to see you. That's quite the picture you got there, Vanessa. Buenos días, abogado. Soy abogado. Oh, no way. Oh. ¿Cuánto está tardando el FOIA, abogado, en llegar? Well, depende en cuál agencia. How long is the FOIA taking? Depends on which agency. Por UCES es menos de 3 o 4 meses. Por ICE son 8 meses. Por la migra es 4 meses. For USCIS, it's like 3 or 4 months. For ICE, it's like 6 months or longer. CBP, it's 2 to 4 months. It just depends which agency. Evelyn, ¿cuánto tiempo me falta para que me quería permiso de buena fe emitir la visa U el año julio 2022? Debe ser pronto, pero yo sé que un cliente mío recibió que aplicó en 2017 la semana pasada. So probablemente un año, Evelyn, aunque Biden prometió más. Evelyn wanted to know when her work permit's going to come through because she has a good faith application. And on U visa, the question is probably another year because the system's broken. What if I came twice with the tour visa? If you overstayed both times and your cumulative stay was longer than a month the first time, presuming you just came in and overstayed the second time, was your stay the first time longer than a year? If it was, then you have a permanent bar, even though they let you back in. Now, the thing with that is you can serve the 10 years here. So it's a new little quirky part of the law. Should talk to a lawyer, Rubia. Monica, I know, it's sad. Spanish. Hice español la semana pasada, Alfa. Cada otra semana estoy haciendo los dos idiomas. Híjole, escúchalo bien. Maria, what happens if those entries don't show up in our FOIA? Well, they won't show up in your FOIA, Maria. Most people weren't caught. So here's the deal. There's a question on the application at the consulate or at the adjustment of status. How many times have you been in the country? So unless you're prepared to lie, which I never am from a client, I will never lie for a client. I like my bar license. Will never work for a client. Lie for a client or anybody else. I just don't lie. Lying is bad. It's malo. Doesn't matter what's on your FOIA. Did you tell the truth? If you tell the truth, you have a permanent bar. It's that simple. My friend Gerald, good to see you. My wife's a permanent. Yeah, that's what's awesome. It's just awful, Gerald. It's just absolutely, terribly awful. It makes no economic sense. It makes no political sense. It's just meant to hurt immigrants. And that's why the permanent bar sucks. It does. ¿Qué dijo de las visas turistas? Te dije, si alguien entró al país con visa, después de haber salido y activando la prohibición permanente, puede servir 10 años aquí para pedir perdón acá. Es un cambiocito en la ley, en la política. Wow, that was quite the rant today. We don't have a lot of questions, probably because I was speaking in English, but it's really, really important that people understand how terrible this law is. There are a number of Facebook groups and some organizations dedicated to getting rid of it. But until you get 10 Republicans to realize how pernicious this law is, it's just not going to change. Nora, hola, buenas tardes. Una pregunta. Yo tengo una petición de mi papá. Pero el falleció hace un año en México. Era reciente. ¿Qué pasaría con mi caso? Well, Nora, si tienes un hermano o hermana, madre que es residente, si no, puedes sustituirlos para la petición. Entonces, es una opción. No hay de qué. Gracias, Alfa. All right. No, como todos saben, as everybody knows, if you need to reach me, if you need to make an appointment, there it is. You know how to reach me. You've got, who I am. Llame a este número por la consulta y estoy aquí para servirles. So one more comment here. One more question real quick. I'm still waiting for my 11 months. I'm in Guatemala. Do you think it will come soon? Andre, are you the one that got stuck out? Your DACA expired while you were gone? Your advance parole expired when you were gone? Hopefully soon. I'm praying for you. It took the other kid like a year, so hopefully soon. All right, everybody. Monica, if I entered 7 years in 1999 and left, came back to 2001, so it means you left in 97. Now, if DACA, AP, can my daughter apply for me? The answer is no, because you have a permanent bar, unless you came back with a visa. So, Monica, you have a permanent bar. You're a perfect example of the permanent bar, unless you came back with a visa. Did you come back with a visa? If not, if you did, you need to call me. So there, yeah, Andre, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're taking care of yourself in Guatemala. All right, everybody. I will see you next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. I'll be on time next week because next week is spring break for my friends at the at Emory, so I don't have to go to class. So again, permanent bar sucks. Remember that. We'll see you next week. Thanks a bunch.